It's so incredibly important to have that unified platform for your company that is governed, secure, connected. It's going to be really hard for companies who don't have their data in order to do anything with AI. You cannot have an AI strategy without the data strategy. Still, some companies are behind on getting their data AI ready. That needs to be priority number one now for every organization.
Historically, it was you had this data and send it to the application. Oh, I need to put it in Salesforce, or I need to put it in Workday, or whatever it is. I think the inverse will happen over time, and it is happening, is where you're bringing the application to the data. And I think that's what Snowflake is really focused on, is allowing the application to sit on top of the data, and having that all that data accessible by any application is incredibly powerful.
Welcome to Data Framed. This is Richie. For your business to make money, you need an effective sales department and an effective marketing department. Naturally, using data to drive decision making and using AI for automation and process innovation is key to your success. I want details on how data and AI are best used in marketing and sales, and how you go about building great teams. Who do you hire, and what data and AI skills do marketing and salespeople need? Today's guests are a double act from the AI data cloud company Snowflake. Denise Persson is Chief Marketing Officer, and Chris Degnan, at least until recently, was Chief Revenue Officer. They spent 9 years working together, taking Snowflake from startup to data behemoth. Denise and Chris have just written a book about their endeavors called Make It Snow. There's a load of insight around building out sales and marketing capabilities for a data company, and I want all the juicy details. How to build out sales and marketing teams is, of course, useful if you work in sales or marketing, but also as a data person, I keep being told that domain knowledge is incredibly important, so now's the chance to learn. So let's find out about data and AI for sales and marketing. Hi, Denise and Chris. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here with you, Richie.
Hey, Richie, thanks for having us.
Let's kick off and get right to the heart of it. So how do you get to $1 billion ARR? What's the secret?
I think we get super lucky. It's a lot of, people, I think, had a lot of perception that it was a lot easier than it was. I think there was a lot of rolling up our sleeves and doing some really hard things, especially early on. When I joined, there was 0 customers, and when Denise joined, we were just at $3 million in revenue. So a lot of things have to go right, and get a little lucky, and take advantage of that luck.
Yeah. At the heart of our growth, right, is, of course, an incredible, product. Our founder had, a big vision, for Snowflake. It took him 3 years to develop, the platform. So it's really the product, and of course, in a relentless customer focus. That has been kind of the consistent theme at Snowflake. It's always been about customer obsession here, and always doing the right thing for the customer.
Okay, I love the idea of customer obsession. It's maybe something we get into a bit more depth later. But I think one of the recurring themes throughout your book is all about trying to have some kind of alignment between the sales team and the marketing team. So I'd love to know how that happens. Maybe Denise, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing is that in most companies, right, there's often a lot of tension between the sales and the marketing function, but not just, among those functions, right? There could be tension, across the entire company, right? And if you want to build, $100 million, $1 billion business and beyond, you all have to align around one mission for the company. And you really need to have a culture of alignment. Having competing with each other, internally, or having tension internally, it kind of distracts everyone from what the focus should really be. The focus needs to be on your mission. Your focus needs to be on the customer. And again, that tension and that often exists, right? It takes a lot of energy from people.
Absolutely. Certainly you don't really want each other to fight. Chris, do you have a take on this as well? From the sales side, how did alignment work?
Yeah, I think, when Denise came in previous lives, or prior to Snowflake, Denise arriving at Snowflake, there was friction between sales and marketing, because we really struggled with getting leads and getting meetings. That's really all I cared about, was getting qualified meetings for the team. And so I would argue over the definition of what an MQL was. And then Denise came in and recognized that friction and said, listen, Chris, like, you are my customer. You're the number one most important thing in the company, because if we hit our revenue targets, all things are good. And so she took that approach, and that was really the approach that we went through at Snowflake. And so that was really important. And her treating me as a customer and caring about the quality of meetings that the sales team was having, not even the definition of an MQL. So I think that was the beginning of like, you had me at hello type thing of like, okay, great, let's talk about qualified meetings.
And also, I mean, Snowflake is an infrastructure company, right? Our deals are sold through a sales organization. There is a PLG component of Snowflake as well. But again, that's not where the largest deals are coming from, right? So it's really sales is the distribution channel for Snowflake. Primarily, we also have a very big partner ecosystem as well. But marketing's role, where you're in an infrastructure play like Snowflake, is really about how do we make our sales organization more efficient. Then you need to really kind of integrate yourself right with the sales motion and not try to kind of force sales to do something different, right? I mean, it's really again having that exact same priority, sharing the same objectives, and making sure that marketing isn't measured on metrics that doesn't make sense for the company. In many companies, marketing has been measured around this MQL metric, right? MQL is a metric that is easy for marketing to deliver on, right? And we sort of determine what that qualified marketing lead is. A lot of marketing departments just goes out to third-party content syndicators and essentially buys 1,000 or 1,000 or 10,000 MQLs a month, right? I mean, that is not what marketing is all about. You want to create your own content, right? So you kind of you build up the house. It's like renting a home versus buying a home. So you really want to deliver incredible educational content that kind of draws your audience in, right? And then it's about, the pipeline metric, right? That is the most important metric. That is kind of where marketing sales really intersects, not on the number of MQLs you're bringing in.
That's interesting. So I guess if I've understood this correctly, when you've got these sort of big pieces of software where you're selling very large deals, all that goes through a sales organization. So it's your account executives who are selling stuff. Very different from selling stuff on a website or in a shop. So there, I guess the sales side of things leads stuff, whereas marketing is. Would you say marketing's more of a support function then, as opposed to the other way around if you're selling to individuals?
I don't want to calling it a support function. I think what has been unique also at Snowflake is that we are first and foremost a customer-driven organization. And if you look at many tech companies in Silicon Valley, they would say, oh, we're a product-driven company. We're an engineering-led company. We're a sales-led company. Snowflake has always been a customer-led business, and every department essentially is equally important, right? So I think we're all here in support of the customer. That's kind of the culture that we live, by here. But again, from a go-to-market standpoint, again, we are all here to make sure that our sales organization can sell as efficiently as it possibly can. From a marketing standpoint, essentially, I would say that we have two objectives. One is, of course, around the positioning in the market. I mean, we are leading that. We're leading the perception of Snowflake and driving kind of the education, right, in the masses. So when the sales team, of course, at some point come in, right, the customer's already kind of educated. They know how Snowflake is positioned. Many people in the organization knows about Snowflake and will support the decision, right? So it's not that we're just a support function per se. But again, our goal is to make the selling motion as efficient as possible. And Chris can share a little bit about the metrics, right, we've had over the years as well.
I'd double down on that, Richie. Is like, definitely would not consider marketing as a support function. I think, and building an enterprise, a company that's selling to large enterprises, I think it's a machine. Like, you have to have a great product. So it's on the product team to develop a product that customers want to buy. Number one. Number two is it's on the sales team to get and tell as many people as they can to get out there and tell the story about why the product is so great, why it's differentiated, et cetera, et cetera. And marketing helps get the brand awareness out there, helps get the sales team in front of those customers to tell the story. And so really what Denise focused on, and I think what she developed at Snowflake was a world-class account-based marketing system. And I think one of the things that like every sales leader, every salesperson that we brought in after Denise and her team developed this ABM program, they were like, I can't believe what an amazing marketing team we have. It was whether it was taking case studies and putting those case studies in front of prospects, whether it was a field marketing event that we would have, and we would generate a bunch of interest in future prospects of having a customer get on stage, tell them why they love Snowflake so much. Those things were invaluable, and that was really the kind of my sales team loved Denise's marketing team because they were they were like, how can we help and how can we drive revenue? And that was like the number one focus.
When we say that, oh, sales is our customer, I'm sure some would be, well, that doesn't sound like a partnership. It's more just a mentality, right? On the marketing side, and being in sales, it's really, really, really hard, right? You have a number to deliver on, every quarter. It's not an easy job, but if you feel that the entire organization is behind you, and it's not just marketing, right? I mean, it's the product organization, it's the finance organization, it's legal, right? Legal is also a very, very important business partner to sales, and also up to the CEO, right? Our CEO is out on sales calls, helping the sales organization, close deals. It's more like a mentality that we're all here to support the customer, and of course, it's a sales team who leads the process.
Denise, you mentioned the idea that some companies describe themselves as being product-led. And so certainly on a lot of the data-framed audience are people who are building things either with data or with AI, as we have a lot of product people. And one of the big challenges is, okay, I've got a product which is technically amazing, and then I've no idea how to sell it. So I'm curious as to like how you go about finding that the market for your product or finding product market fit. Maybe, Chris, do you want to start this? How did you approach this at Snowflake?
We had a investor in Mike Spicer from Sutter Hill who firmly believed in hiring a salesperson prior to the engineering team believing that they actually needed a salesperson. So Mike's kind of pitch to me was come and help define the product direction at Snowflake and go talk to a bunch of customers. So I joined Snowflake like no external people had ever touched the product. And my initial pitch was not like try the product because I couldn't give it to anyone. It was like, hey, do you have 15 minutes for me to tell you about this company that has no website, that is in stealth mode, where we've built this brand new architecture and for a database, and here's what we've done. And so that was the initial like, hey, do you believe in this architecture? Do you think it will solve pain points that you have? That was my initial conversations. And then as I found people that were interested, then I started, and the product matured a little bit. I was like, okay, well, hey, Mr. or Mrs. First or second alpha customer, will you try the product? And then we started getting people to try it. And during that process, we broke the product a lot. So like, before I ever got a purchase order or signed agreement for anyone to give us any money, the earliest customers were beating up the product. And what ultimately, the founders and Mike Spicer were looking for was, we want to build a product that people cannot live without. And so that was really my goal, is like get people to try it, and then they got addicted to it. And then we could start figuring out pricing, and then we could figure out how to build out the scale to go to market. But it was at first like, hey, shaping the direction. Because early on, I had, delusions of grandeur, like, hey, I would go out to like a large enterprise that was stuck in the 1990s who would say, hey, when will Snowflake deploy in our cloud, in our private cloud? And the founders would say never. Okay, so there was two options there. It was either continue to badger the founders, which I knew I would lose and I would get fired, or go find the right customers that only were in the cloud, because those were the ones I didn't want to sell the religion of the cloud. I wanted to sell why I had a better product than anyone else in the market for cloud data warehousing. That was the initial intent, and that really helped hone in the messaging. That helped us even as Denise came in, and she helped define product marketing and all the what markets did we specifically want to go after. It was really our earliest customers that led us to this direction, and that was the beauty of me joining as early as I did.
I love that you're trying to sell a cloud data warehouse and the customer's saying, well, can we have it on premise?
It happened a lot, trust me.
And also that concept of ideal customer profile, it would change, of course, right? And in the early days, right, of course, we had wanted to sell to the large enterprises immediately, right? But they don't trust, a company with no customer, right? They can't experiment the way those early customers at Snowflake did. So we were in the early days, we were big in the ad tech space, in the gaming space, and these were customers that really pushed the product to the limit, right? And helped, of course, develop Snowflake to what it is today. They were the early pioneers, and everyone else was looking at them. They were envying them, right? Because the big companies couldn't do what they did yet, right? But when they saw that, okay, it's really working from them, right? Then they started believing Snowflake as well. So I think being a startup is really about finding the early believers, right? It's even when you hire people, our founders had to inspire people to believe, to move from very big companies to come and join this company, right? And then it's the same thing with customers, right? How do you find those really early believers who are willing to bet on this? And then, right, when you start crossing the chasm, right, it's about those people who believe in the believers, the anxious people, right, who are not willing, who cannot take the risk right early on. So of course, the ideal customer profile really evolves, over the years.
We hired this amazing CEO, Bob Muglia, early on, like 9 months into my tenure of being at Snowflake, and Bob invented our pricing model. I took a crack at it and failed miserably. And what really Bob's genius was around the product was, okay, we ultimately want to sell to large enterprises. And early on, our board members were like, this isn't a great business because all I was selling to was, as Denise said, was ad tech and online gaming. And they're like, this is not sustainable. If that is the market we're going after, this isn't a real company. And so he came from an enterprise background. He said, okay, well, what does the large enterprise need to use this product? And so he then came up with that list. And every week in our company all hands meeting, he had a list of all the enterprise features that any large enterprise would need, and then he'd assign it to an engineer. And in the all hands meeting, he'd point to every engineer who is responsible for that feature and say, "How is it coming?" And every week, and the engineers hated it. Selfishly, as the salesperson, I loved it because my accountability was the number, and I never knew like if engineers were going to develop the product or not. And for them to be held accountable in a public forum, they didn't like that, but it actually got us to what we declared GA in June of 2015 to become a generally available product because of the stuff that Bob took into. Because I think it's important how to figure out how to sell the product. What are the differentiators? That was what our earliest customers showed us. And in fact, that was helpful. As I brought on salespeople, I actually understood it to a deep level on what the pain points were that we were solving for these customers, these earliest customers. And I would then say, like, these are the things you have to look for, Mr. and Mrs. Sales Rep that we've hired that has never sold Snowflake before. And that was incredibly valuable because then it gave us I could actually tell them this is an A account, a B account, or a C account. And that's where Denise and I partnered up and said, let's go after the A accounts and let's give each sales rep 100 accounts each. And then let's go get them a bunch of meetings in those 100 accounts. And that's where we kind of started to really focus our time and energy. Because if a sales rep has thousands of accounts, they're just going to be super reactive. But if there's, here are the A accounts, here's why they're A. Denise, help us get into these accounts and let's get meetings, qualified meetings in those accounts. That's what we centered our kind of focus on and partnership in. On driving, ultimately, world-class revenue growth.
So on the marketing side, before even the sellers had started, right, since it was so clear which accounts were the A accounts, I mean, we went in, did all the contact discovery, all the mapping of those accounts in terms of who are all the different decision makers and influencers that we need to engage with in this account. So we went in, it was usually about maybe 100 different roles, right, within the company. And then it was about, okay, how do we drive engagement with 20 or 30 of those? So when the seller joined, right, they got, okay, here are your 100 accounts, but these 10 accounts you should focus on because there's already really strong engagement here. They already wanna hear from Snowflake, essentially.
This is fascinating. And I have to say, the idea of making product people stand up in a meeting and say, this is where I'm up to on that feature, I'm sure that it's going to really terrify all and solve them. But both of you mentioned that you've focused early on ad tech and online gaming. So why did you decide that? I'm curious as to how you go about trying to figure out this industry is going to be our best customers. Like, how do you choose this?
As I said, I had customers. I'd go to these like Fortune 500 companies, and they'd say, "When are you going to the private cloud?" And so, our founders were like, "Never." Okay, great. I'm not going to go sell to those right now. So, it's either like I accept defeat in those accounts for now, and like I said, I was not selling the religion, and the people that were selling the religion were Amazon, were Microsoft, and Google of the cloud. That was their job. My job was to say I have the best product in the space, and so I quickly then figured out that I was only going to sell to customers that were in Amazon because Snowflake only existed at the beginning only on one cloud, and it was AWS. And so I went on job boards and looked for people that were advertising for people that were on AWS using a particular product or a couple different products from AWS, and then find the head of data, find the VP of engineering, and then send them emails. And what I realized is we didn't have like basic enterprise features. So we didn't have things like encryption, like, hey, we didn't have SOC 2, Type 2. These are things that large enterprises care about. Well, guess who doesn't care about that? Ad tech and online gaming. So it's a bunch of log file data. And so I quickly, focused my time and attention on log file data that people didn't care about encryption. Now, eventually we added the encryption that allowed us to go after, regulated industries and like HIPAA compliance and all this other stuff. But in the earliest days, it was just deduction of like who I could sell to. And that was really it. Obviously, the ICP of Snowflake, ideal customer profile, changed over time. As Denise said, it wasn't going to be ad tech and online gaming forever, but that was like what kept us alive as a company. And one of the beautiful things of that was that one of the ad tech companies that we sold to got bought by a huge prospective, like a Fortune 500 company. And that Fortune 500 company actually then decided to use Snowflake as the back end to their marketing cloud. And because they did that, all of a sudden, then another, massive Fortune 500 retailer heard that this marketing company was doing that. And all of a sudden, boom, we get that customer talking to that customer, talking to that customer. And then all of a sudden you start to see that flywheel of the Fortune 500 go. And the earliest adopters of the cloud in 2016, 2017, those were the ones that we focused on. If we were going to go to like a bank and convince them that they needed to move their on-premise data warehouse into the cloud, and they had not even talked to Amazon, we that was like a C account. That was not an account that we'd go after.
That's very interesting. I think like banks are some of the big adopters of AI. Like, so they're sort of cutting edge in this way, but like maybe they were a lot more hesitant in terms of the infrastructure. Interesting. Okay. Just talking about like trying to find your best customers. I mean, you've got to get a lot of signal on like who's going to be good at buying, I guess, from the marketing side of things. Denise, do you want to talk us through like what do you learn about like who are potential customers from your marketing efforts?
Well, I mean, we run everything on Snowflake, right? So we run everything, on data here, and that has been also instrumental to our growth as well. It's one of the big reasons why I joined here. Data was always my challenge. I had to go in IT, knock on the door. Hey, can I get this data set? You get it sort of 3 weeks later, right? That was the case 10 years ago. Still the case from many, many companies today. So in terms of then that ideal profile, right, we built those models in Snowflake so we can identify more. It was always about then finding the twins, right, to the early successful customers, and again start building out engagement within those. So it was an entirely data-driven process in terms of how we identify the twins of our ideal customers, and then we started sort of expanding from there. And often what happens, right, in B2B infrastructure is that the sales team had a set of accounts, right, at the previous company. So let's say they were running 10 different accounts. They moved to another company and they start selling into those same accounts. But that wasn't relevant to Snowflake in the early days, right? They came in here. Those customers, again, could have been those customers who says, oh, when are you moving in on-prem? So you really had to kind of deliver to the sales team, here are in your patch, here are again that 50 to 100 accounts you should focus on based on data, based on also intent data that we're sort of buying from third party as well. So we really had a formula for how we develop that ICP list for sales. And also, usually, right, in sales, you go out and just hire in all territories. There were territories that we just didn't hire in because there were not enough ideal customer profile prospects in those regions, right? So also sales hiring was really determined on then the volume of ICPs in different territories. Also that model was an entirely data-driven model where, again, usually and correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, but usually also a sales leader goes out and hire maybe previous leaders in different territories, and that's how you build. We really built it from an outside-in standpoint, really from where are the ideal customer profiles and the volume of those, and that's how we built the sales team as well.
Okay, I mean, I love that there's such a data-driven approach to kind of building out, like, well, I guess to making all your decisions, to building things out. And actually, just think about marketing. I mean, there's a lot of different areas of marketing. Like, actually, I think one of the things in your book is the idea that it's like 5 different departments kind of glued together. So maybe, Denise, do you want to talk us through like the different regions? So we've covered some of the terms already. Like we talked about account-based marketing, field-based marketing. Like, what are all the different areas of marketing, and where is sort of data most amenable to being used?
Again, data is absolutely used everywhere, and especially today even more. I mean, every function is running on data, and also there's some recent numbers here across our marketing team shows that 90% of all marketers are using AI on a day-to-day basis in their work today, and they're saving hours on a daily basis, right, using AI. Especially, of course, from a performance marketing standpoint, the growth marketing teams, it's very, very data-driven, right? Again, we were data-driven in the way we identified the right prospects to target. We were data-driven in the way we, of course, engaged with those, audiences. It's really data throughout the entire sales process as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, Chris, how about on the sales side? Talk me through where you're using data.
As Denise said, like it would say to me is like no sales reps left behind. She would always look at where leads are coming from, making sure that we could then attribute them to a territory. And if someone was starving from a lead perspective, she would focus there. So I think number one is we'd look at from a territory perspective, where were leads coming from? And those are obviously good metrics to look at as you start to hire. I advise companies now that I'm not don't work at Snowflake anymore. I advise them to startups, and a lot of them, are eager to go, just geographically to different places. And what my comment is, take a look at where the leads are coming from geographically first. Who's raising their hand? If you're an early stage startup, who's raising their hand saying, I want to buy? And I think you have to think about that before you say, I'm just going to randomly put people in Europe or randomly put people in the Midwest or wherever. You want to really focus on that. So I think we focus there. And then on the metrics side, there are basic things that have been consistent that Denise knows that I've said from day one is, hey, every sales rep, and I would say this to even at my, as I was, towards the end of my tenure of Snowflake in the last year, I would get in front of new hire classes. And a lot of these people would come into Snowflake thinking, oh, I'm going to ride this wave of this amazing company because it is a world-class company, world-class product. And I would say it's the misperception of Snowflake is that it's easy to sell because it's a knife fight. Every single time you're going out and you're competing with some of the biggest companies in the world. You're competing with Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and then there's some other very well-funded startups like Databricks and others that are like, you're literally in every deal knife fighting. And so, which is still true to this day, is go on 8 sales calls every single week. If you hold yourself to that metric, then, and you have a great product and you tell that story and you understand how to tell the story, then guess what? You'll put yourself in a position to win. But if you're waiting for, marketing to send you a bunch of leads and you're waiting for something good to happen to you, it won't, I promise you. And so I would tell salespeople, there are people in this room that think it's easy to sell Snowflake when it actually is not. But if you go out and tell the story 8 times a week, you will hit your number. If you do not do that, flip the coin and you may or may not make it. So I was, kind of very brutally honest with people when they came on. And that is kind of what I tell everyone is hold yourself accountable to these metrics. And then if you have a good product and you know how to sell that product, the revenue will come. And that's what I've learned through the years of building the team.
I mean, if we fast forward also to where we are today from a data perspective, the challenge in marketing has always been there's always some marketing investments that goes to waste, right? Because you're targeting the wrong people, it's not the right time, right? All about that. Marketing is, of course, about being the one who's the most relevant is gonna, of course, win the deal essentially. But the ability today to do predictive forecasting of everything. So the way we can today predict what our pipeline is going to be in different territories is game changing. Often in the B2B world, you end up in a quarter where you realize, oh, okay, there are certain territories that they don't have enough pipeline this quarter. In the pipeline is in the quarter is very little you can do, in marketing, right? The work we do in marketing is setting us up for success in maybe 6 months from now. But to be able now today with predictive forecasting of our pipeline to see, okay, let's say California is not going to make it in 6 months from now if we continue doing what we're doing today, and to fix that problem before you're in the problem essentially. That has been a game changer. So for us to be able to reallocate resources to where they're going to have the most impact, right? That really makes every single dollar work for us in a whole different way. The way we run our digital spend, for instance, we can in real time see which digital channels that are working or not, which messages that are working, and just adapt all of that, in real time. Where before, and still for most companies, right, they will know maybe months or weeks, later what worked and didn't. And there's so much money that goes to waste. There's no better time to be in marketing today because of data.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love the idea that you can, in real time, make decisions about how to resource it. 'Cause it seems like an incredibly important thing about just making sure that your operations are running optimally. Okay, so Chris, you mentioned that selling stuff isn't easy. Since you've both built out departments, I'd love to hear more about what kind of profiles you hire, what kind of skills you look for. And I guess, has it changed over time? Because I mean, you both took the company from kind of scrappy startup to multi-billion-dollar company. So yeah, I guess who do you look for when you were hiring, and did that change over time?
We actually early on found people that were successful and not successful at Snowflake. We actually went to the next degree of metrics and actually made everyone do an assessment. And so I made all the best and the worst performing people do assessments. And it was both on intellectual assessment and personality assessment. And it turns out okay, we were selling a technical product. So you had to have some intelligence, right? You didn't have to be a rocket scientist. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone from Stanford or Harvard to, jump into sales, but I want some sort of intelligence. And so I'm looking for that. And then on the personality traits, I'm looking, ironically, for early stage startups, I'm looking for people that are maybe pessimistic, distrusting of people, maybe even or very competitive. So competitive athletes, stuff like that. But just, are you competitive? And you can get that in these personality assessments. A lot of times they were kind of not everyone has a perception that salespeople are these hyper social people. And in our earliest days, a lot of our earliest salespeople weren't trying to be best friends with everyone. They were not these people that were the lives of the party. They were people that were very driven, didn't trust what buyers were telling them. They would have to validate it across the organization. And you're looking for that because, at our scale, when we were small, I couldn't be in every deal. And so I needed the sales team to do their job on qualifying these deals, to do their job on not trusting that, Johnny procurement person is going to actually buy when they say they are, because procurement people are traditionally don't do it that way. They don't buy on our calendar. So we have to, do what, we do in sales to make sure we do that. And so, yeah, there were some commonalities of people that I was looking for as we grew. And by the way, the people that I hired early on, they had to have experience opening up net new customers, net new prospects, or turning prospects into customers in the last 24 months of their job. That was really important, because if I was going to hire someone that was selling to 2 accounts in our earliest days, that wouldn't have worked for Snowflake, because we were doing $46,000 transaction, $30,000 transactions. A whale hunter is not going to do well in that environment. Over time, it changed dramatically, because Snowflake has, customers that are signing over $100 million contracts today. And so like that now you might have like, 3 reps on one account and they're selling use cases versus like acquiring a bunch of new logos. There's an acquisition team at Snowflake that's separate, but really the profile of the human on the account changes wildly as you mature as a company for sure.
Usually when I ask people about like what skills you look for when you're hiring, there's like, oh yeah, I just want someone with good communication skills. I love that he's like, I want someone who's very competitive, distrusts other people. I love that. A refreshing answer. Okay, interesting. Denise, is it the same on the marketing side? Like, what kind of profiles were you looking for?
For the record, Richie, I still give Denise crap about this. She hired one of my best SDRs. She, liked a lot of our salespeople coming into market. For the
Yeah, and
record.
she's
A
today.
misalignment.
Yeah, and this SDR, she actually runs field marketing for the Americas for Snowflake today. I mean, she's in a very, very senior position. And yeah, on the marketing side, I also were looking for people who also could build that relationship with sales as well. There were some people on the team when I joined who just couldn't do that. Who really, I mean, piss people off, for lack of better words here. So you had to be very extremely collaborative, be again humble, and understand that I don't know everything. You want to be motivated by constantly learning new things, a very curious, mindset. Those are the type of people we're still looking for today. But in the early days, right, you're looking for those with a very entrepreneurial mindset as well. Because when you got in here, right, in the early days, again, you got your laptop, you got your 100 account list. And yes, there was some training, right? But that's it. You had to go out and very much also figure it out yourself. And it's what we're seeing today is that many of those who were with Snowflake in the early days, they're now running their own companies today. They're running startups today. They thrive in that kind of startup environment where you just go out and figure things out on a day-to-day basis, right? At Snowflake today, there's more process in place, right? There's a framework for how we do things, and people have to kind of fit into that, right? Today, you cannot come in and kind of break processes, break our framework. That's going to impact our scale, right? At some point, you need that to scale, right? You need to fit into a system. The people in the early days are those who, again, they were out breaking the system, essentially.
It always amazes me, like how startups actually function. Like they're all held together with like string and glue, and like there's no processes for anything. So yeah, I certainly see there's a very particular mentality for that.
And in the early days, especially in marketing, right, you need people who can wear many hats, right? They can help out on the PR side. They can get customer testimonials, right? They can, also run an event, right? Very like they will go in and figure anything out, essentially. And where we are today is that everyone now have landed in a place of specialization. So those people are still here today, right? They landed in an area that they're truly passionate about, that they love. Again, today, right, you cannot have people running around wearing different hats, right? It would create sort of chaos in the environment we are today. But I think also it's great to see today that there's a great blend of those people who've been here early on. They have great tribal knowledge, right? They bring the culture forward. And then we're combining that with people who bring in more large enterprise experience. They know how to build systems, processes that can help the company scale further. So it's so important to have both today. And the thing that everyone has in common is extreme collaboration, teamwork, respect, for one another.
Okay, yeah, I do think being able to collaborate with others is incredibly important because, like, the so few projects where you can just do this on your own and be done. It's like you are gonna have to collaborate with others. Okay, so I mean, you both talked about the importance of data, both in marketing and sales. So I'm curious as to what data skills you look for during hiring. Like, maybe Denise, you want to go first? Like, what data skills do you look for when you're hiring marketers?
We can actually teach people data skills today. And today it's easier, right? It's easier. Those skills are less complex than they used to be 10 years ago or before Snowflake. Snowflake made it easy, right, for organization to work with their data. In the early days, we built our own center of data excellence within the department. So I had data scientists on the marketing team in the early days who were really close to the business problem. They completely understood what we were trying to do. Sales had its own team. Everyone had its own team. Now, actually, that is a centralized center of excellence for the company. When these teams were built, they ended up being some applications of work. Also, there are special competencies, a unique area right today in terms of data science and AI. So that function is today a centralized function that works then really closely with those that are very close to the problem that they're trying to solve. But again, we're hiring people that love data, right? That really lean into the data, want to make data-driven decisions. So it was more the mentality of loving data, wanting to work with data, rather than have any specific technology skill sets that we can easily teach people today.
Okay, I love that idea that yeah, you can teach people on the job because they're gonna have to use data presumably if they're working at Snowflake. But yeah, they just need a love of it and they're willing to learn. Was that the same thing you've found on the sales side?
On the sales side, there's the sales operations and sales strategy org, and it's very similar to Denise had her marketing operations team. I had my sales operations team. So there's commonalities between each organization. They're looking at data different ways, but they're looking at the data, and a lot of times they're looking at the shared data, figuring out how we can fix certain things from a sales leadership perspective. I think especially as the company gets big, I had 3,500 people when I left working for me at Snowflake, and I think that organization, even my job was dramatically different. And I think it's almost better to have someone who is very operational, very numbers driven, because it's no longer like this intimate affair of like, I know every single person. I'm going on all the sales calls. I know all the customers. It's a numbers game. And I think that's the difference in the job from like early days to where it goes. So I think sales leadership needs to have an operational mindset, especially as the company gets big. Snowflake's, well over $4 billion in revenue. And because of that, there's this massive scale, and you need people to think in terms of numbers, not just like, I would always think about like each deal, and I'd be involved in every deal, very tactical. And then you kind of have to be strategic around what do you see in the data? And so having good operations teams, and I think Snowflake's done a wonderful job of, under Sridhar Ramaswamy's guidance, of really having this centralized data function to look across the entire organization to make data-centric decisions. And I think I'll give Sridhar a ton of credit on helping the company in that frame.
Yeah, I love the idea that data just really helps you scale because you need to like run your operations more efficiently. And yeah, so Sridhar came on the show last year, and yeah, he just seemed like a very, very data-driven guy. So
Well, yeah, that's an understatement, and he's great at it. I mean, I've never seen anyone better, so he's great at it.
And building a company, it's about making a bunch of decisions every day. What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And if you do make the wrong decision, it's going to set you back and you might even kind of fail as a company. Having data to make those decisions, that has been absolutely instrumental to our growth and making the right decision.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, such a competitive advantage. Just make less stupid decisions than your competitors, and that's going to be a really good way forward. Okay, so we talked a ton about data. Somehow we've got like 3/4 of an hour in, we're barely talking about AI. So I guess one of the big use cases of AI that a lot of people are pushing at the moment is around AI for automating things. And to talk about scaling, like how have you made use of AI for scaling Snowflake?
Yeah, I mean, extensively. And we've used AI for many, many years at Snowflake and across the entire marketing in our process. What's unique today is today we have actually agents up and running now. So we have agents for running all our different campaigns. We have an agents for compete analysis, for instance. So instead of the sales team having to be trained on every single competitor out there, they now have an agent. They can ask a question. I have a meeting tomorrow with this company. I believe I'm competing against this company, and these are the different use cases and problems we're going to talk about. And the agents, gives them all the talking points back. I mean, that's a complete game changer, right? In terms of time saving and equipping them, with the right message at the right time. And then, of course, we use AI for everything, for content creation, we do a lot of, customer interviews. I mean, we've cut the time in terms of developing interview scripts and editing and all of that, with AI. So it's truly used across every function in marketing today.
Wonderful. I mean, I do love that idea of having an agent that just prepares all your talking points for you. So you go into a conversation, you're like, oh, I know what I should be talking about. I should probably try that on podcast sometime.
Truly, I mean, we're truly at the point now where we're talking to all data. I haven't looked at the dashboards in months now. We have actually a product coming out here in November in GA Snowflake Intelligence, right? It really lets you have a conversation with all your enterprise information, your structured data and all your non-structured, data. So for me, where I usually, some queries are more complex, right? That I didn't do myself before. I would have to go to someone, hey, can you look in deeper into this? Right? You always want to dig deeper into a dashboard and get more and more answers, back. Now I just go into Snowflake Intelligence and I can ask the question. I get all the answers, back. So I don't have to go and ask anyone to go deeper into the data. I can go very deep and wide across all the information at Snowflake.
Wow. I mean, that's a surprisingly radical shift. It's like that you don't need dashboards as much. I mean, I think pretty much every company, like their analytics, it is dashboards. It's just hundreds and hundreds of dashboards, and that's how a lot of leaders get their information. So
You always want more from that dashboard. You always want to, but I want to answer why did this happen? Why did we increase sales with 30%, right, in this region? What happened? Which products contributed to that? Which sales reps contributed to that? So to be able to ask that question and get the answers back. And again, if you get the answers back, you're going to be able to make the right decision, quicker. And that's what is going to help you to move at speed and focus on the right thing.
okay, yeah, I mean, that's the dream right there, is just being able to ask a business question, get a sensible answer back, just so you can make the decision. Wonderful. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Denise hit it. Is Snowflake's always customer zero for all of Snowflake's products, and so Snowflake's rolled out Snowflake Intelligence, and they call a product they internally call Raven, where it actually each of the sales leaders can actually ask questions about, for example, what's happening in this customer. So like, historically, you might have to go to Salesforce, you might have to go to actually Snowflake, because Snowflake's a consumption model. Snowflake can actually look at how healthy the customer is. Well, what this Snowflake Intelligence tool does is goes out and says, here's what's happening across all the different sources of data, and then it tells you like, hey, this customer's doing this, they're doing that, and then I foresee a day when you're interacting with like a tool like Snowflake Intelligence, where you're saying, hey, what has changed in my business in the last week, in the last day, in the last month, in the last quarter, and actually giving me questions that I could go ask my sales leadership around what's happening. So I think it's just going to help people be more on top of the data, versus like historically old school sales was all about your intuition. Like, hey, I intuitively think this is happening based on like what I'm, reading the tea leaves. Well, now you don't have to like, that's still going to help. People buy from people, but if you can be smarter about those decisions, and AI is helping you understand your data more effectively, and you don't have to go to the data team every time to build a dashboard to hope that you're actually looking at the right data. I think that's the neat part, as Denise said, interacting with your data more frequently and in your own way is something that's changing really in real time right now.
Okay, yeah. So that cross-team communication, so it's like someone in sales asking someone from the data team, and maybe they're busy at the moment, and it goes back and forth. I can certainly see how that slows things down. So yeah, being able to cut that out of the cycle.
And operating on the same data, right? It's so incredibly important to have that unified platform for your company, that is governed, secure, connected. It's going to be really hard for companies who don't have their data in order to do anything with AI, right? I mean, companies do understand today that you cannot have an AI strategy without the data strategy. Still, some companies are behind on getting their data AI ready, and that needs to be priority number one now for every organization.
Yeah, I mean, data quality, it gets glossed over a lot. I think it's like, it's not the fun stuff. So, that can cause problems later on when you're like trying to build that with AI. I'm curious, what does kind of like, what's your ideal tech stack then for marketers or salespeople then? I mean, I know you're going to say Snowflake, but so it's what, just a database and a load of agents, or is there more to it?
I don't think we can predict exactly how things are going to look at in a couple of years from now. What we're seeing in the marketing space is that everything needs to be connected from a data standpoint. So all these different applications you need in marketing, of course, you need a data platform. You need to have a customer 360, view. You need applications for activating data. You need systems for doing identity management, right? There's a lot that you need. The key thing is that all these applications needs to be connected from a data standpoint. That's what we're seeing now. A lot of these marketing applications are being built directly on the data. So they're being built, on the Snowflake AI data cloud, for instance, because you don't want to start fragmenting your data again, right? If you start buying these point solutions again, right, you're creating more data fragmentation, and that is going to hinder you really from realizing the value of AI. So the importance is really that all these applications are connected from a data backend standpoint.
Historically, it was you had this data and send it to the application. That was like how everything has kind of been built. Oh, I need to put it in Salesforce, or I need to put it in Workday, or whatever it is. I think the inverse will happen over time, and it is happening, is where you're bringing the application to the data. And I think that's what, Snowflake is really focused on, is allowing, the application to sit on top of the data, and having that kind of all that data accessible by any application is incredibly powerful, because you can actually, like, in earliest days, you could look at a data set that I don't have access to. Like, Denise could look at a data set from Marketo, and I don't have access to the Marketo data. And I'm going to look at data from the Salesforce perspective. And that was the case. And now, like, it's like, hey, we want to look at the same data, and you can ask different questions of it. But because we're, Snowflake's doing a wonderful job of bringing the application to the data, or AI to the data, then all of a sudden you can ask the question 7 different ways, but it's still looking at the same data. And that's really important.
Yeah, data is truly the new infrastructure that applications need to be built on.
Yeah, it does seem like the sort of historic idea that you want the data as close to the application as possible has just caused all these data silos. It just doesn't work anymore. So I do like the idea of just making sure that whatever application you're working with, you're going to have access to like data from different sources, because most questions are going to involve data from multiple places. All right, super. So before we finish, I'd love to talk a bit about Snowflake Build. So you've got a whole week of developer events. Yeah, I'd love to hear what it's about and what you're most looking forward to at the event. So this is something DataCamp's heavily involved with as well. So yeah, Denise, tell us about it.
Build is actually an entire season of build, activation starting November 4th with our virtual build event. That's also the mid-year event where we're making all our mid-year product announcements. So there's going to be a slew of new incredible products coming to market, including partnership announcements, etc. A lot of customers talking as well. It's very much of a peer-to-peer learning event, and then there's going to be in-person build events all around the world. Many of them are in India, but also in locations like London, for instance, in early next year. And it's really our event series primarily for developers, but also practitioners, data practitioners as well.
Wonderful. Sounds exciting stuff. Just to wrap up, I always want more people to follow. So whose work are you most excited about at the moment? Is there anyone I should be looking into?
In terms of companies, in terms of what?
Who do you read about? People in companies, who's doing exciting stuff?
As Denise said, is or as I said, I'm on the outside looking in terms of I now advise early stage companies. And so I'm super excited about what's happening in the next generation of AI companies. I'm advising a company called Factory .ai, and they're developing code generation tools, and they have really a different way of doing it than the Cursors of the world and Cognitions of the world. So I'm excited about them. I'm helping a voice company that has a voice AI agent that's incredible. A company called GigaML. They're super early, and they've got these huge customers that they're replacing customer service agents with, and there's a real return on investment. So stuff like that. I mean, look, I still love Snowflake. Snowflake has a wonderful story, and it'll continue to be a wonderful company for years to come. But yeah, it's fun getting back in the early stage. And so that's where I'm spending a lot of my energy is with early stage startups.
That's cool. And yeah, certainly more ways of doing better code generation, like improving software development. That's a really important thing. Denise, who are you looking at the moment?
I mean, I do think OpenAI is doing tons of exciting, things. We look forward to using many of the products coming out of them. But again, there are a range of different, startups as well, we're looking at. So yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah. OpenAI obviously been dominating the headlines for a few years with all their progress. So yeah, hoping the innovations keep coming out. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Janice, for your time.
Thanks, Richie.
Richie, thanks for having us. Great talking to you.